Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and welcome to the Winging It F1 podcast. We're doing it on a Saturday for the first time in a while because that's when we're all free. F1 isn't on for a few weeks, but there is still a lot to talk about. And for the for the second time in 2 years, we are doing one of these predicting next year's grid special edition podcast because we didn't do one last year because I can't remember why, but we did one in the first year, so that's gone well. So that's what we're doing, and with me to do that is a confused Freddie Coates and the athletics watching Adam Dickinson. Are you all right on this fine Saturday evening?
That's going to be the longest title of any Winging It episode ever. So that's great. That's very SEO friendly.
I feel like it's the most winging it of all of the introductions of all time.
I've done some bad intros though, haven't I?
That's exactly, and I'm taking all of those into account when I said that.
The Harry and Meghan one's still one of my favourites, but I can't remember what episode that was. So I was going to say go back and watch it. I don't even know what it was.
With the recent news a couple of weeks ago about Prince William, it's a good thing you didn't do one then. But anyway.
Oh, I don't know about that.
No,
don't look it up. Don't look it up.
I'm not part of the royal family, unlike you.
No.
I'm not going to say what. No.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move on because I don't know what it's about. Let's talk about Formula One, not the Premier League. Even though Liverpool drew their first game.
At least you scored a goal. We've had 180 minutes of no goals, so.
Yeah, and I captained Salah, so I got 20 points.
I captained Kane, so I didn't.
Yeah. Anyway, silly season. It's stupid season this year, but the top three teams, their drivers are already. Well, it's not going to change, is it? Unless something absolutely crazy.
Brendan Hartley's going to go to Mercedes.
You're not ready. So at Red Bull, I presume we've all got Verstappen and Perez to be on the grid next year. Verstappen's contracted till 2028. Perez was announced earlier this year to be on the grid for 2023. Any thoughts?
Yeah,
2024. Sorry, 2024.
It was straight after his Monaco win.
Yeah. Any quick thoughts on that before we move on from Red Bull?
I said points about this in our previous episode about the Hungarian Grand Prix. I think it's fantastic. I think it is a fantastic lineup, but I do think they probably should do a little bit more to just bring Perez that little bit closer, because I think Max can drive around some of the issues a bit better than Perez. And if you want to have two drivers, which they did at the start of the season, it was when the car was suiting them a little bit more similarly. Whereas now it's a lot more of a Verstappen car, and that's it's a good way to develop it when Verstappen's in a title fight. But I do think Red Bull do probably need to cover off the threat of other cars for their second driver, if that makes sense.
Adam, any thoughts on the driver lineup?
No, again, something that I've said before. I think it helps massively on Perez's side that there isn't really any pressure currently coming from the driver academy or the junior team from the brands that invented really the current setup of driver academies. There's kind of isn't popping off so far. So yeah,
and that brings us on to Ferrari, who have got Charles Leclerc till 2026 at least, and Carlos Sainz till 2024. Now, if things got really, really bad with their strategy, and it gets even worse somehow, do you think one of them would decide to leave early? Maybe not this year, but next year.
Depends on the opportunities. We don't know what Lewis Hamilton's going to do at the end of next year, and we don't know what Mercedes would do in that situation, say of bringing in a replacement for Lewis Hamilton. And there's no greater kind of win for them probably than getting Charles Leclerc into that seat. But I can also see Carlos Sainz being a little bit cheaper to get and also very, very fast. So I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of thing happens. But currently, I'm of the belief that Lewis Hamilton is going to sign a renewal contract for 25, maybe 26. So with an option at least. So I don't really think there's going to be much change there, just due to the contractual position, meaning they're safe in a very competitive car, at least.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. Adam?
The biggest threat I see is between both of them. If the relationship between them sours kind of like a Alonso Hamilton type thing, then I can see one of them probably more likely to be signed, but I can see one of them mustering out before that. But yeah, I don't think it's likely, but I think there's a possibility.
Yeah, and again, this won't be for next year. This will be for 2024. So for 2023, Ferrari are going to keep their lineup, which brings us on to Williams. We've gone from the front of the grid to the back because Alex Albon, for all Freddie wants to say something, does he? No, he doesn't. Because Alex Albon, I don't know why I said it in that voice as well. Bit giddy. Alex Albon has signed a new contract to stay at the team until 2024. I think the team have done it just to cover it off in case he has any thoughts about going to Alpine. That is my kind of instinct with it. Is that something you'd agree with, or was it done before then?
I can see both arguments. I think they'll have been keen to get it done because I think he has, he signed the 1-year deal last year, and I'd get the feeling that from Williams' side, it was we'll see where you're at, whether we're getting Toro Rosso Albon or Red Bull Albon, and they've seen which one they've got, and they want to extend that. So I can see they'd have definitely had an appetite before all of the craziness that's gone down, but maybe it did kind of make them move a bit quicker. We don't know, but yeah, I think it's a good move. Good move from Williams, especially Albon. It's a safe move. I think it's probably the right decision. He might have had a chance higher up the grid, but in terms of, still just getting further and further away from the Red Bull debacle and putting that further and further in the long-term memory, I think it's a good move for him.
I think, continuing on from what Adam was saying there about moving away from his Red Bull days, I think actually staying at Williams is probably the perfect move for him, continuing to be that team leader, continuing to be that building driver, because he's been linked to Alpine, he's been linked to McLaren as to kind of just suggestions, but he goes to those teams and he's not the team leader in a way that he is at Williams, basically. And I think staying there, it gives him the best opportunity to be considered as more of a top driver than to be honest, in a midfield team where you'll be fighting for points a bit more regularly, but at the end of the day, the performances aren't going to be showing you up as greatly, you could say. I think that's a very optimistic viewpoint of that, but I mean, a move, say if Alex Albon was recalled to AlphaTauri, that would be, to be honest, really quite a nothingy move for him where he is at the moment. I think he can stay at Williams and for the multi-years, as it's a multi-year contract, and can basically just really solidify his reputation, which he's done a mega job with this season already. And I think just solidifying that is exactly what Albon needs to do. And I do agree there is a certain element of Williams snapping that up quick because there's such volatility in the market, and he has been probably been having a couple of chats with Alpine and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was fast tracked at the start of this week.
The only thing I would say on it is if he'll be 29 at the start of the 2025 season, so that is kind of time maybe running out a bit to, well, no, that's I don't know, it's just like I still think of him as this young driver, but actually he will be nearly 30 at that point. So
and Alonso just turned 41, so
but he isn't Fernando Alonso. I don't think I'm jumping the gun in saying that. So
no, I know what you mean, but I think Albon, he has got a bit more kind of obviously more time, but he's got a bit more kind of to do for that. He can't really be jumping the gun, in my opinion, because I think that's what stepped him. He's obviously got a lot of confidence, but I think that's what stepped him back in everyone's estimations, because he was thrust into the spotlight, and it did kind of go wrong when things went wrong up there, and it just threw him down a bit more. So I think just a base is a bit better for him at the moment, in my opinion.
I think his next contract needs to be with a big team if he wants any chance of winning races and that kind of thing, though. So
I think that's what I'm saying, and just kind of 29, I guess, is a bit later than he'd want for that, but it's a safe deal for him.
Absolutely. But who will be his teammate? This brings us on to the first question mark, big talking point in our prediction. Who wants to go first? Is it me who's going to go first?
It'll be Daniel Ricciardo.
Adam's got Daniel Ricciardo to Williams. Hang on. Just before you speak.
Explain himself.
Yeah, Adam was saying that he's played it safe That is not safe. Saying Ricardo to Williams. Explain yourself.
I think they will probably want Logan Sargeant to get in, but I think they'll want to see maybe a bit more or give him another season in F2 before that. I don't know. But I think maybe looking at how Tsunoda did and how he struggled last year, they'll kind of maybe want to avoid that a bit. So, and I don't see them bringing in, for that reason, bringing in someone like De Vries, I don't think would make that much sense because, he's kind of a rookie. There's not kind of as many one and done things being done anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. I just thought it kind of made sense from both sides to me, where you've got Ricardo, he stays on the grid. And for Williams, they, obviously it's not gone great with Ricardo, but up until, his last or the start of his McLaren career, then we know the driver that he was. And I think it's worth the gamble for Williams to see if that driver is still there. And if he's not, then they ship him on in a year and bring Sargeant in. And if so, then he might have the chance to move up the grid, or they'll see what happens. So,
I've gone with Sargeant. I've gone with the driver. I think he's. I've never been a big fan of him, admittedly, but this year he has changed my opinion of him a bit. I think he's shown a bit more speed, and I think looking back, he is always a driver who kind of punches above his weight. I feel. I think being American as well, F1 will be telling Williams and Ray, choose him. We need an F1. We need an American driver. So I think that's a bit of a factor as well. And I think money isn't a big issue for Williams anymore. So they don't need Latifi. So, I don't think Latifi is going to be on the grid. And, Albon brings in a bit of money as well. And anyway, so I think they can afford to go for a hot young prospect. And I think Sargeant being on the junior program already fits that bill, I think.
I have also gone for Sargeant. I actually have rated him for quite a bit. I think he was the driver who took it to Piastri in Formula 3 when they were teammates at Prema. I'm pretty sure, if I remember rightly, he was leading the championship going into the final round before he was punted
Magello,
out,
wasn't it?
Out of his control. Yeah, because I do think actually there's a high chance that he could have won that championship, and it could have been a very different trajectory of his career. And then if you look at it, the fact that he came so close to that championship, then had to stay in F3 for 2021 and joined the team that was one of probably the second worst on the grid, and didn't get a point, I think, the year before, maybe got like 2, and he won a race with that team. So I think that's pretty good. And I think he's been very impressive in Formula 2. He's shown a kind of upward curve in a pretty good way if you compare it to where he started the season in Formula 2, where he is now. It's shown marked improvement. So I think, considering the circumstances Williams are in, take the chance. I think I agree with what Adam was saying, that giving me a second year would probably be certain, if that makes sense. It would give a bit of, you definitely understand, but I think they're in a position where they don't want to keep Nicholas Latifi. They've obviously missed the boat on Oscar Piastri. And I mean, Williams have form in umming and ahhing over a driver and then eventually going for the next year, if you look at their dealings with Kubica. But I don't think they're going to go for Nick de Vries, because I think they're going to probably, he's going to probably end up with different scenarios. And I think may as well go for a driver in your fold. Why not?
Yeah, I'd have to. Yeah, I really hope this isn't one of those things where me and Freddie have gone with exactly the same line. Well, I don't think it is.
Oh, no, I don't think we have.
Yeah, but I think a couple of years ago it was very, very similar. Adam, go on.
Yeah, I just want to add, like, I'm not trying to kind of slam Sargeant or anything like that. I think he is a great driver, and he would be deserving of the seat, and I don't think it's unlikely that he ends up there. But I don't know. I guess part of me wanted to go a bit different, and also it did make sense from both sides that for Ricardo going there, it's just a one and done, and then see where everything's at. So yeah.
Well, I'm really intrigued by your placing of Ricardo, because I wouldn't be surprised if Nigel and I both also kept him on the grid. But interesting that Williams is where he's shaken out for you. I'm intrigued by your other drivers now.
We should quickly talk about Aston Martin, because they've obviously it's confirmed no driver lineup. Fernando Alonso has caused a mess partly, and Lance Stroll.
He's Fernando to mess.
Yeah. Thoughts on that for next year? Well, actually, we talked in depth about it on the episode when Alonso did move, so you can find out our thoughts there. But is there anything new that you thought over the last 7 days or so?
It's the most one-sided driver lineup on the grid, I would say. That is my new thought.
Yeah, Freddie, anything?
Just to reiterate what I've said previously, that I do think it's a brilliant move from Aston Martin. And I think it's a bit of a heart move from Fernando Alonso, but I hope it works out. And I think they could get some very good results, particularly in 2024. It feels like 2005 or 6 we're talking about this, when all like the contracts were signed for like years in the future. It's like in like 2004 2003 even, when McLaren signed Juan Pablo Montoya for the 2005 season, and then that year signed Fernando Alonso for 2007. It's like, oh, madness.
Yeah, I think Alonso will obliterate Stroll. Quite frankly, I think Stroll will do really well if you can match him consistently. But yeah, just like Adam says, I think the driver dynamic, to me, the personalities don't match too much. But yeah, we'll see how they fare and where they are on the grid.
I can see Alonso matching quite well with Lawrence Stroll. I can see them doing like joint press conferences where they go on like riffs, like slamming other people.
Well, if they're at the back, they'll be slamming their own team, which will be fun to see.
Slamming his own son.
Well, yeah. AlphaTauri. Now, Pierre Gasly has signed up earlier this year to stay for next year. Yuki Tsunoda isn't confirmed yet. Will he be on the grid, do you think, Adam, next year?
Tsunoda,
yeah. Or will it be someone else? You do?
Yeah. I think so. I think he's been good this season, and I think he's shown enough this season. And as I said before, I don't think Red Bull have that driver coming up where in F2 where it's like he has to be getting a seat. And yeah, I just don't really, unless they nab either Pourchaire or Djokovic, then I don't really see it happening, to be honest. I just don't really. Yeah, I don't see who would come in, and I think Tsunoda's done enough that it's not like you have to get him out. So, yeah.
Oh, interestingly, you say that. I have gone for Felipe Djokovic. I think Red Bull are going to pick him out simply because, well, if he does become F2 champion, and this year he has been very, very good. It's similarly to Sargeant, though. Again, I wasn't really. Didn't really see his talent too much, but thinking about it, his first year in F2, he was very good. Won a couple of races with MP Motorsport, who are not a top F2 team. And then, yes, he had a bit of a dip last year when he was Joe's teammate at Virtuosi. But then this year, he's bounced back brilliantly. He's been very mature as well recently. I think he's picked his battles at the right time because he did build up quite a big lead with his rivals having their own misfortune or making mistakes. So I think he's shown the speed, and I think he deserves a chance. And I think Red Bull will pick him up and place him next to Gasly next year.
I can see Red Bull picking him up and sending him to Super Formula for a year, and then like if they want to replace Tsunoda in for 24, I can see that being a thing. That'd be a very Helmut Marko thing to do. But yeah, I think he's a good driver. I'm not trying to take away from him, but yeah, it just, I don't feel there's maybe the momentum there for him to get into F1 that I think he'd need. So it's an interesting shout.
Who've you gone for, Freddie?
See, this is the interesting position I'm in with. This is my quandary. I think Tsunoda should stay in that seat, but I don't trust Helmut Marko.
Who does?
Hopefully Tsunoda. And I want it to be a Gasly Tsunoda lineup for next year, because I agree with Adam. I do think Tsunoda deserves it. I think his performances relative to his teammate this year, apart from sort of a few blips, I think for the most part, I think he's been
bad blips.
But
I looked at Hungary last time out. Like, it was awful. I think he spun and he ended up being a lap down or something, and then the crash in Canada and that.
That has happened. But I think for the most part, particularly on pace and on points and stuff like that, he's actually been very very good and definitely a marked improvement on the year before. And I think that's something you've got to take into account. But I think Mick Schumacher's going to be in the seat.
Wow. 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 Wow.
I don't know. I have a weird feeling that I can just really see it happening. I don't know why.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
No rhyme or reason, and it's really odd why I think that. But it's just like, okay, so I think that, okay, and if it does happen, I'll still be surprised. But I can see,
everyone would.
I can see Red Bull really pushing for it.
So you know what? It's similar. Well, it's not. It's a bit like me saying, they're going to pick out Drugovic because Drugovic has no links with Red Bull, and Schumacher has no links with Red Bull either. But obviously, Schumacher has the F1 experience. Well, I guess the thing that I've just thought about is Red Bull have signed a new or they've confirmed a new extension to stay with Honda for the next few years, or have that agreement. So will that influence Tsunoda? Help him a bit? Do you think?
That's an interesting point. I'm not really sure.
I thought this was announced at the start of this year. Like I had in my head that this was going to happen until 2025 anyway. But
I think what's been announced is more of a kind of a relationship with Honda rather than a relationship with just kind of like kind of sort of intellectual property and stuff like that. If that makes sense. Like they've had HRC on the car this year, but they've obviously extended that. I think it's really I think it's more just it's a throwaway for some copy, really. But I Red Bull were always very uncertain on whether Yuki Tsunoda was a Honda driver or a Red Bull driver. And I think he was a bit of both. So that could be an interesting point. I haven't considered that.
I just don't think Tsunoda's got much of a future in F1, which is why Red Bull say goodbye to him. That's why I kind of stand to it.
I mean, he's only something like 4.5 seasons out of F4. Like, he is still, which is why I kind of don't, I don't. He came into F2 as a rookie and showed enough there, and so I think not just in terms of F1 experience, but in terms of racing experience, he is still pretty young to be at the pinnacle of motorsport. So that's why I think he deserves that chance. And it's a kind of you're both right in that it's a bit of a wild card what's going to happen in that situation. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I don't see Mick Schumacher, but it's a very interesting. It is very interesting thought experiment.
I think with Yuki, I think he's performing better this year in a worse car. And if you look at where he was compared to Gasly last year, Gasly was really flying and Yuki wasn't performing very well. But this year, I think they're very on par, and Tsunoda's performing definitely markedly better in terms of results compared to last year, but in a worse car. So I think that just should be taken into account to really mark where he is this year. And I think it's very easy to forget that just because we kind of don't really ever trust AlphaTauri's position on form. But they were fighting for fifth in the constructors last year, and Tsunoda was the driver who let them down. But I think this year, if they're in a car that was at the rate of the relative competitive performance that last year's was, I think Yuki would be really driving that as well. So I just don't trust them. I just really don't trust them.
I'd
weird things, but I can see a push for Schumacher for some reason.
If he was performing like this last year, Tsunoda, everyone would be absolutely giving him loads of praise. But yeah, interesting. We've all gone for 3 different drivers there. Sticking with the Alpha theme, Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas is signed up until, what did I write, 2023? Or no, they just said it was a multi-year.
Yeah, it's a multi-year.
It'll be 2 years plus option.
Yeah.
So 2023 confirmed for Bottas, obviously. Who do we think is going to line up against him next season? Is Adam going to go first again? Or
no, I'm going to say Joe.
So am
Are you
I.
going to say Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to say he's going to stay.
Interesting.
Because team are very happy with him by the looks, in my opinion. I think his curve has been pretty good. He's obviously nowhere near Bottas, but he's definitely closer and getting closer, in my opinion. So I think the team are going to keep him. It's that kind of position where when they kept Latifi for his second season, it's kind of like, okay, we can see bits. We can see that this could be all right, but I don't know where it will be next year. It's not a punt to keep Joe.
I think he's significantly ahead of where Latifi was going into his second year. But yeah, I think, I don't see a reason why Timor Driver would move away, to be honest. And I not really, I don't know. There wasn't a name that kind of sprang to mind of who'd replace him, although maybe Nigel's going to surprise us.
Well, Teo Pourchaire, it has to be. They've been bigging him up for so long. They have to put him in the seat now. It's now or never. Huh?
You not get the impression they've stopped picking him up?
A little bit, but I think he's still good enough to be an F1. Yes, he's not had the best year this year in F2, but I think he's still got that raw talent, and I think Alfa Romeo will go for that. I think because if he doesn't get in this season, I don't think he'll get in at all.
I mean, he's another one that's like Yuki 3.5 seasons out of F4. He's 2.5 seasons out of F4. So again, he's very young in terms of racing experience. So I can see them going again. But if he won the championship, then maybe they want to get him in, and maybe they'll hold off Zhou for a bit for that. But
I still just rate him so highly. So I think that's why I've gone for it.
He is really, really good. Yeah.
It's a hard one. It's a really hard one because I've not been impressed with what he's done in Formula 2. I think he's been pretty,
he's had a lot of bad luck as well.
He's done pretty much, in my opinion, the same as Callum Islet in Formula 2. Whenever
I'm not having that, mate.
Off a cliff. But look, what? He's not fighting for the championship in his second year in a way Islet was. I mean, he's fighting the championship as best he can, but he's
had a lot of bad luck.
What? Okay, well, so is every F2 driver. It's such a fickle car. I do think he should have done better, in my opinion. Really, that's where I lean it, and I think I would love to see him in F1. I think he could do really well, but also I think they do. Alfa Romeo do have a good thing going there at the moment. I think it really fit for Teo Pourchaire. For me, it depends on the next 2 or 3 rounds, to be honest. And I do think if there's any driver in that grid who could really just go on a drive of results, I think he could, but I think he needs to do that. And I think he's been lacking in kind of doing that a lot of the time, in my opinion.
I think if he does get to F1, I think he will, show his talent. Maybe it's just my heart rather than my head for this one. But
I think he'll show his talent and his inexperience. I think it'd be quite an up and down season. I rate Pourchaire, but I think, although that next season will be his third in F2 as well. So, I don't know.
Zhou is the safe bet. Yeah, Zhou is definitely the safe bet.
And Alfa Romeo are quite a safe team as well.
Yes, that's why you kept Raikkonen and Giovinazzi for 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So I've gone a bit different for that one. So let's move on to Haas then. Kevin Magnussen is contracted until next year as well after he returned to F1 in February. Was it February or March? It was February, wasn't it? I think
2022.
Yeah, say 2020 after he returned early this year. So who is going to line up alongside him? Because one of us has already placed, I can't remember what we said now. One of us placed
Schumacher at
AlphaTauri. That was Freddie. So Freddie obviously thinks Schumacher won't be at Haas. So where do you think he's going to be, Freddie? Sorry, who do you think will be in his seat, Freddie? That was an awful. Don't laugh.
Yeah, you messed up on that one. That's all right. So I've got written down Colton Herta, because I think Haas will be a little bit, and then we'll sign Colton Herta.
Just to make that clear, Haas are going to go Colton Herta. It's as simple as that.
It's not as good as Zuar Cantona, is it?
What I was about to say is the name the racing driver name that sounds closest to Cantona.
Cantona could work.
Exactly. There we go. Basically, I think Andretti and Haas could have a deal. Who knows? I'm making this up on the spot. Let's be honest. Because Andretti have struggled to get onto the grid, but they obviously want to have a presence. I couldn't be surprised if they try and have a bit more of a presence on the grid by having a kind of deal with, hey Haas, how about you have this free driver called Colton Herta? But I don't really know what would work out for anyone there. But I can see Colton Herta driving.
Well, it's the American team, American driver in the American team, isn't it? That's what Haas, should have been doing from the start.
If you can get some Andretti sponsorship on Haas, that would be interesting. So yeah, basically, I think Colton Herta is going to be there. This is where I get a little bit like, about things. I need to kind of make a decision about something in the future. Like, is Kevin Magnussen going to be there as well? Let's be honest. Let's.
Oh, so you don't think Magnussen will be there either?
I don't know.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll say who I think will be in next to Magnussen, because I think Magnussen is saying. I think it will be the same driver lineup. I think Schumacher has shown glimpses finally starting in Canada. I'd say that he can match Magnussen. He's got the pace, and I think he's going to continue that form in the second half of the season as well, which will save his seat after his crashes and mistakes earlier over the last 18 months, really. So I think he's going to drive his way into securing that seat, and I think Ferrari as well. There's still that element of, could he be, probably a number 2 driver to Leclerc or whoever's leading Ferrari in a few years, perhaps. That's what I kind of think. Freddie is shaking his head at me, though.
Schumacher's not going to be at Ferrari.
If he performs, I still think he could be
He's been better than Teo Pourchaire, granted, but that level isn't very much. So
I think he will race for Ferrari in F1 at some point in his career, and I think that could be soon, but it's not going to be next season. I also think
you didn't even have him on the grid for next year, man.
Oh, I do. I have him at Haas.
No, I nearly didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have him at Haas, but I find Freddie's Herta is fascinating. That's. I really like that, and
thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right, that was short. Caught me by surprise.
But just it's one of those that there's a lot of ways that it could make sense, which is cool.
And there's a lot of ways it couldn't also.
Yeah, but let's be positive.
Formula One. I think.
Go on.
Yeah, I'm going to keep Magnussen there for now. I might come back to that in a bit. I'd pin in that.
Yeah, I think Magnussen will stay as well. I don't kind of. Yeah, I keep. He's been good enough.
If I were another team, basically, what I'm going to say to this: if I were another team, I would think Magnussen would be a really good driver to go for. But he's so happy at Haas, so I can see him really just being so loyal to that team. Basically, that's
so
kind
what
of
Freddie's saying is Magnussen might go to Alpine.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying. I can very much see them pursuing him.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point.
I'm getting ahead of our schedule here. So.
Yeah, no, it's all right. The Alpine seat is open. We'll get onto that last, because we've got McLaren to talk about first, though.
Like 10 seconds.
Yeah, so they've obviously got Lando Norris until 2025, and then the big stuff this week is that
they're going to promote their simulator driver Will Stevens to a race seat. It's going to be insane. After they gave him that young driver test at Portimao, he ran the day after Colton Herta did, and he really impressed the team. He's been really good behind the scenes. He's got that kind of Damon Hill attitude of an old driver stepping up. So yeah, Will Stevens for F1.
Yeah, it wasn't that. It was that since in our last episode, when we found out Oscar Piastri said he was not going to be at Alpine next year, which we all reacted to as it happened, which was very funny and shocking for some of us.
Yeah, check that out. It was actually quite fun.
Yeah. So, do we all think he is signed up for McLaren? I mean, it was the first thing I said when I saw the tweet. So I've got him there for next year. Do we all agree on that?
No.
Oh, can I say yes before Adam goes in?
So,
yes. And also based on what Nigel's former site, Racing News 365, have reported that it's been signed off by the Contract Recognition Board in Formula One as well, which is a bold thing to report, which has also then since been picked up by Motorsport.com and Autosport and the race. I kind of think that's looking relatively nailed on now.
But Adam's gone against them all.
He thinks Ricciardo's going to stay there and also be at Williams.
So Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The main reason I did this was because I found it easier to pick someone from McLaren to go in than to come in for Alpine. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I find it a bit more likely that Alpine have a stronger thing than Piastri thinks than not. But yeah, it's mainly. I was close to flipping a coin to decide where I put Piastri because I really couldn't decide. But yeah,
it's a really, really good theory, to be fair. And the fact that nothing's confirmed and it's all been playing out in the media so far it means that, you know, it is kind of 50-50. Flipping a coin is probably the only way you can make a prediction on that, because I think you're right. I think there is Alpine obviously have been ridiculed a lot recently, but we haven't seen any of these contracts. We don't know. They could genuinely have legal case for this. So
yeah, they put out the press release ultimately.
yeah, exactly. It's a very good point, and it, you know, I think it's a really good point to make.
I mean,
I think the only reason Piastri said what he said is because he signed up with McLaren or signed up with a different team at least, which I think is McLaren. So yeah, I think that's why I've gone for him there. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, like McLaren still haven't announced anything, and I just think the way, yes, like Alpine went out with it, but also the way they're like backing it up, and they're still backing it up that they are so certain that they are legally sound. Then I don't know. I think there's got to be something in that, and I don't really. Yes, it won't be an ideal situation for Piastri, but I think he'll be able to swallow his pride and get in the car and drive, and you know, see what happens in.
But he said he's not going to be driving there.
Yeah, I know, but it's not like, you know, that's what he said, and that's what he probably believes right now. But I just don't think it's that much of a hurdle, really.
It's easier for Piastri to renege on a tweet, you could say.
Yeah.
But what I'm intrigued to quiz you on now, Adam, is that you've said Ricciardo is going to go to Williams. So you think there's going to be an alternative in the McLaren seat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is.
Unless
Norris takes up 2 seats.
No.
That's a conversation relating to off this podcast.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I think he's going to be the next Lewis Hamilton. Go on, Adam. Who's it going to be?
I've gone Palou.
Ooh.
But
that was my original choice about a month ago.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Yeah, again. Yeah,
I'd be highly in favour of that.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about it, and partly it was just ease that there is someone there in the McLaren stable, or is he in the McLaren stable? Well, I think he is, that they can bring in. And yeah, I don't know. I think it makes sense for both parties. And like you said, Nigel, for him to leave and then go, you know, sign up with McLaren, then there must be some incentive there. So yeah, that's why I've gone. I'm not, you know, these two are the ones that I'm least certain on, obviously, but yeah, I just think, yeah, that's what I think.
If it is Palou, then oh my word, it's going to be absolutely chaos until we find that out.
It makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, Herta is obviously the driver from America who's been linked so much to Formula One, but the two drivers that also are well linked and well liked by McLaren, Palou and Pato O'Ward, are performing way better than him this year in IndyCar. So in terms of points and stuff like that, I mean, if you look at pace, you'd probably go for Herta, but if you take Herta and put an iron on him to iron him out, you're going to need to do that 40 times. He's a severely creased driver. But that's a butchered metaphor if ever I've said one. But I don't know. I just find it'd be interesting. It'd be really interesting. It wouldn't play out till December. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, because before this Piastri thing, I did think Palou, but because of this Piastri thing now, I think it has to be Piastri. So,
it's a hell of a move to make if you're McLaren. Palou is a driver who really is sort of grown with age.
Yeah,
his junior results weren't very good. His Formula GP3 results weren't very good. They're always kind of average. Yeah, I think he got a reverse grid win or something in GP3, and that's about it. And then he basically, when he went over to Super Formula, I think, and did okay, and somehow got an IndyCar drive and then did really well. So he's an oddball career of a driver, and I don't know. He's a weird one to sort of rank because he's been excellent in IndyCar. He has been excellent in IndyCar, but he's not been excellent anywhere else.
So who are you both saying for the other Alpine and McLaren seats then?
Well, I think we're both saying
McLaren.
Piastri for McLaren and Norris.
Yeah, Norris and
Okay.
Piastri, yeah.
I mean,
And for Alpine?
Alpine, I'm saying Ricciardo and Ocon.
Sensible, I think. Is it? Yeah, but it's probably the most sensible choice.
sensible
Although it's
because they
super
can-
open.
Because Ricciardo's going to be cheaper than he was, but they also know how he works.
Yeah.
And he would be basically slotting into his old seat with his old mechanics and team and so on. You were talking about Piastri sucking it up and dealing with it if he had to go back there. I think it's less of a suck up and deal with it for Ricciardo, in my opinion, because he's had to do that for the last year and a bit on track anyway. So
there's a pride element from Alpine's side that I don't know. This is nothing tangible, but if they do get snubbed by Piastri and he goes elsewhere, I think bringing the kind of, PR of bringing back Ricciardo, I think would look like failure. And I can see them not purely for that, just going for someone else, because it's like we're not going back to our ex. We're getting someone else. We're bringing them in.
I disagree. And in my opinion, there's an element of it. If you could spin it like this from a PR angle, pretty well, that Ricciardo he dumped Alpine and Renault, but he's okay with going back to them. I mean, it's a reach to make because obviously he's been sacked. He's not chosen, but you can definitely do a play on the fact that he would go back there. It's the closest you can get to a positive way of spinning it, to be honest, apart from saying we've taken a sacked driver. I mean, he's got 8 Formula One wins and that kind of thing, so he's got many a podium. He got 2 podiums with Renault, so he was performing excellently there, lest we forget. I think if you're Ricciardo, you look at that and sort of look back where you were a couple of years ago and go, to be honest, this team wasn't a problem for me. I just thought this team would be better for me. It hasn't been. So maybe it's better to go to a team that would work for me. And Alpine, I think, can afford to then not pay him 25 million a year as well and get a driver who's performing so excellently last time he was there.
You've convinced me with that. I was going to say Ricciardo wasn't going to be on the grid, but you have convinced me with your explanation.
Who were you going to say would be for Alpine?
Stoffel Vandoorne.
Whoa! What whoa! Why didn't you go first?
What?
He's already signed up for DS Dragon, mate.
You were surprised at me. What?
I think he's going to make a return to F1. I think.
Oh, I mean, I would love it.
I think we all know what went wrong with McLaren.
Rap in Formula One, but anyway.
Well, a bit like Ricciardo, actually. It didn't work out at McLaren, but he's super talented. I think he might get another chance in F1.
He's like 30.
Well, Albon's nearly 29, apparently. So.
He'll be 29 at the start of the 2025 season.
Vandoorne
will be 33.
Or De Vries. Or De Vries. One of them.
De Vries is like 28.
Yeah. I think one of them.
I see it less likely that De Vries would go to Formula One than Vandoorne, even though De Vries has been the one that's been linked a lot. Yeah. I can see De Vries going to. I said this to Nigel as well a few times. I see De Vries being leading the Toyota Le Mans lineup from next year, unless he goes to Maserati in Formula E. Who knows? But I don't know.
You did convince me with your Ricciardo thing.
I know. Just for the shock, I kind of also want to say Stoffel Vandoorne now, just to be weird. Be like, it's just saying, just being like, yeah, Vandoorne, yeah, we're going to die on that hill, and just when it happens. This is why I don't have gambling apps on my phone.
I am just so shocked. Like, that's just such, out of everything, out of Alonso to Aston, everything that's happened with Piastri, Freddie saying Schumacher to where Alpha Tauri,
AlphaTauri.
that is the most shocking thing about F1 that I have heard in the last few weeks.
I don't see why if McLaren aren't signing Ricciardo, if McLaren aren't signing Piastri, Ricciardo would be going.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess because I said about a month ago that Ricardo will be leaving F1 now, I'm just going to be stick with my guns, I guess.
I think
I think if we did this podcast next week, I'd have an entirely different grid. That's the thing. I mean, there's a whole load of things you guys have suggested,
like Schumacher at Ferrari.
Schumacher ass. Sonoda staying. Or Sonoda at Williams, something weird like that. I mean,
The
I
thing
can
with
see that as well.
the thing with Ricardo is like if I'm McLaren, which I'm not, but if I am, I'm just
Thank you
I
for
don't
clarifying.
I don't. It just seems like there's so little risk to bringing in someone else because there's not that much worse they can be than Ricardo has already, and they've already given him the shot this season at redemption from last season. So I just don't. Yeah, I know there's always the chance, but
For me, that's what provides the most risk, if you know what I mean. In that a driver that was so highly rated everywhere else as Ricardo was not performing there, taking a risk on someone who's not like proven in Formula One, say, is then even more of a risk. You could say,
but then how?
It's not,
No,
in terms of
but you
results and
can't-
performance, they won't be any worse. Well, they
Yeah.
can't really be any worse than Ricardo.
Yeah,
surely.
that's what I mean. Like you
But
can
that's
score
painting out
19
like
less.
Ricardo's
You can score 19 less points over halfway through the season. Like it's really not that far to drop. And so yeah, it's just not really. I just don't see what they kind of gain from sticking with what they know in Ricardo versus trying someone out just for the sake of trying someone out because they just. I just think they know what they have with Ricardo and it's not good enough and it hasn't been.
If you want to hear more about our thoughts on Ricardo, watch the Ricardo episode that we did about 4 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I can't remember.
Ricardo.
But yeah, this is by far the most crazy silly season for a long time, and F1 always has.
So boring this year.
Yeah, same.
So solid. I thought it was going to be Magnussen and Schumacher, Sonoda and Gasly. Maybe.
I mean, I've gone for both of those. To be fair,
maybe Piastri will be at Williams and be the only rookie or something like that. But
yeah,
blimey.
So quickly, I believe we didn't really talk about Mercedes properly. I did mention it, but then we kind of moved on quickly. I don't know why I did that. Bad hosting. You had something to say on Mercedes, Adam?
It's very Nigel hosting. It's very winging it hosting.
I mean, the way the order we've done the teams, I've got no idea why I've done it in that order. But anyway,
we discussed that because Alpine was the big story.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, I mean, just for completeness, I think it's worth mentioning them, and I certainly think it's going to be Hamilton and Russell next year. But if you want to take, I think they're the best driver pairing on the grid this season.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
And who do you think is going to be there next season?
Hamilton and Russell, obviously.
Yeah, Russell.
That was teeing up for such a good shock from someone.
Oh. Yeah, but
but
we're not stupid. We're not saying Vandoorne's going to Alpine, are we? We're not stupid.
No, that'd be really stupid.
So, to round off then, shall we just quickly read out who we've got in each team? So the viewers and listeners who have been watching and listening for the last hour and a bit can write it down and then laugh at us and tweet at us in a few months.
Please let us know as well.
Yeah.
Please let us know in the comments of this or on Twitter or wherever you want to say hurl abuse or praise at us.
DMs and send him a nice poem about what you think is going to happen to Stoffel Vandoorne.
I am genuinely interested because I think all of these, like, you can make we've been shocked at each other's picks, but you can also make solid arguments for all of them. So please let us, like, in the comments of YouTube or on Twitter at Winging It F1, then please let us know because I am interested to hear what people think.
Yeah, so very quickly, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, that's obviously all the same. For me, McLaren, I've got Norris and Piastri, Alpine, Ocon and Vandoorne, Aston Martin, it's obviously Alonso and Stroll, Alpha Tauri, Gasly and Drugovich, Alfa Romeo, Bottas and Porsche, Haas are going to stick with her lineup, Magnussen and Schumacher, and then I've got Alex Albon and Logan Sargeant at Williams. Who did you again have, Adam?
I'm going to go in a different order to you, but I have, the top three teams staying the same. I have Ocon and Piastri at Alpine, Palou and Norris at McLaren. And then Haas and Alfa Romeo keeping the same lineup, and AlphaTauri and Aston Martin, and Williams taking Ricciardo.
Mr. Freddie Coates.
That was mad. Adam just said Vettel's coming back. I have same lineup for Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, Alfa Romeo. I have Aston Martin's obviously bringing Alonso in. AlphaTauri with Gasly and Schumacher. Haas with Magnussen and Herta. Williams with Albon and Sargeant. Alpine with Ocon and Ricciardo, and McLaren with Norris and Piastri. And also, I think all the team principals will stay the same.
Whilst I've not forgiven that before.
Yeah. Tune in next time. See.
Team principal silly season special.
Yeah, let's go.
Oh god! All right, brilliant. It's been a pleasure, guys, as always. I don't think I've ever said that before because that sounded weird coming out of my mouth, but it has been a pleasure.
Oh, it's nice of you to say it though.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice, very kind of me.
What I've really enjoyed about this year's silly season is just as I'm. You guys know that and Nigel, you're the same as me, but we're such big fans of other motorsport, and the way they've all sort of linking this year in a weird way is really fun. The fact you've got IndyCar and Formula E playing input into this kind of discussion we've had is very fun, because it can get very insular in the sort of F1, F2 bubble. And it's very fun to have sort of the talent recognition being quite global, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because if we were doing a podcast on the Formula E silly season, if you go on the Wikipedia, there's like 20 drivers that say TBA there for the 2023 season. And like that would be mad, but who knows? Dan Tixon's not going to be there.
Yeah, Dan Tixon's not going to be in F1 either, probably. We will be back next week then, hopefully, for a mid-season review of some kind before we all go on holidays and carry on with our work. So until then, thanks, Adam. Thanks, Freddie. It's goodbye.